Alright, what is up YouTube? This is Shatner's Prodigy, and I'm coming at you with a new video series that I'm going to title Tips and Tricks Fabled Quasar Edition. I'm going to start this video out by saying that I am not the best Fabled Quasar player out there. Blue Eyes White Boy is definitely better than I am. I'll include a link to his description since I mentioned him. He's really good. I based my deck this format off of his deck. We do have different decks, but I do use Birdman, which I hadn't considered before, that I took from him, and overall he's just really good with the deck, but he doesn't post up very much. So I figure I'd create this video series to help new players to the deck and kind of get you introduced to it, because I feel like it does need a different mind style than other decks, because other decks get advantage to use the cards they get against their opponent, whereas Fabled Quasar, you really get advantage to use the advantage to get more advantage. And what I'm talking about is, for example, let's say Fabled Raven, right? That's your main draw card. If you have less than 2 cards in your hand, you can special summon him and draw 2. Now what you do with those 2 cards isn't what you would do with a card like Fire Formation Tenki, which gives you a +1 so that you can summon your monster and possibly go plus more with Bear. But Reagan, you draw 2 to try and give up that advantage so you can move 1 step closer to a Quasar Dragon, which in the end will stop your opponent from making plays, and that in my book is a plus. So in this video I'm going to show you how to use Fabled Grimro and Fabled Raven effectively. I may only get to one of them, I don't know yet. I am recording this live, which is good. I found the record audio from microphone button on Cam Studio, so I may put up a live comm if you guys want that. So Fabled Grimro and Fabled Raven. These cards are good. Fabled Grimro is your searcher, which is, if you control a face-up Fabled monster, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to add 1 Fabled monster from your deck to your hand, except Fabled Grimro. And I like this card because it's one of the only searchers that is never dead. And what I mean by that is, even if you have 0 Fabled monsters in your deck, none on field, you can just normal summon her and use her as a beater. That won't happen with Tenki. If you have no Beast Warriors, you can't use it. That won't happen with Rhoda or any other search card, basically, that's not a monster. And that's why I like her. I like that they made her a monster. Also, even if she's in your graveyard and you can't discard her or normal summon her, you can bring her back with Crust. And that leads you to one of the most basic Reagan plays in the entire deck, which is if you have Chawa in hand, and also Crust in hand, but your Fabled Grimro in the graveyard, you can of course discard Fabled Crust to special summon out Fabled Chawa and get Crust back. And since you have a Fabled Tuner and 4 non-Fabled levels, you can go into Fabled Reagan, which is good. I like that. As one of the most elementary combos the deck has, that, and besides discarding Fabled Lurie with Fabled Chawa to special summon it and get out Formula Synchron. That is one of the easiest synchro plays in all of, Yu-Gi-Oh! And so right now I want to talk chains. This isn't really on topic, but there are a few cards in your deck that can miss timing, and I want to just get those out of the way. First off, Shooting Quasar Dragon can miss timing if it's removed from the field. Here, I'll show this to you. So Quasar Dragon right here. So you see here it says when this card leaves the field, you can, which right there you know it can miss timing. So if it leaves the field because of a card effect that was Chain Link 2 or higher, so if say you attack them and they activate Mirror Force, you negate it, they activate D-Prison, something like that, it won't get its effect to summon itself because it's when you can effect. Also, cards like Librarian and Cerebel and all monsters that special summon themselves from the graveyard will always be Chain Link 1. Well, if you have multiple effects like that, they'll be Chain Link 1, 2, and 3, blah, 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 and onwards, because they are mandatory, and Sagok says that turn player mandatory effects always go first. And then your optional effects like Reagan and let's see, other stuff like Cross No, wait, Crust is mandatory. Never mind, like, Reagan will go on Chain Link 2. So let's say if you use Librarian, 3 Tuning Wares, and a Chawa to summon out Reagan, right? So you have 4 effects that draw cards, but because they're all mandatory, Reagan will go as Chain Link 5. Then you can put the other 4 on any Chain Link you want, and then draw a total of 6 cards off. I don't want to tell you guys that, just so you don't get roll sharked and lose out on 2 draws, which would stink. Anyway, so here's how you max. I'm going to show you the optimal situation to use Grimro in. The optimal situation is if you have, say, yeah. The optimal situation is, of course, I mean, it's not a complex card. Really, the optimal situation is if this is your hand, per se. I don't know. What I would do, personally, is I would normal summon Raven, which if you can do it without using normal summon, go ahead. And then I would use Grimro. I always use Grimro before I start discarding Chawa, before I start discarding for Chawa, and before I start discarding with Raven, because it sculpts your hand and it allows you to do stuff with that. So when you want to do Fabled Grimro is whenever you have a good play, but you can make it better with a different card. So this is a good hand right here. I have all of this. So I can definitely make Formula here. If I discard Chawa and Lurie off of Raven, I can make a Reagan there. But this hand will get better if I use Fabled Grimro to add a Cerebellar Ganache to my hand. Because then I have all sorts of options. I can then go discard Cross with that, or even if you go for Nezuchi. Because if you go for Nezuchi, you can discard Crust for Chawa, and you can bring out Grimro with Crust, and that'll get you 1 level 5. And then you can discard Lurie to get Nezuchi to the field, and you'll have a level 2, a level 2, and a level 1. So you can go for another Fabled Reagan. And depending on what you draw, you can either get a Soul Charge or, like, I don't know, Raven Cerebel, sorry, not Raven. Nezuchi Cerebel or something like that can allow you to go into Phonon Pulse Dragon or into Formula Synchron, and that will complete your combo. So basically to recap, you want to use Fabled Grimro before you go into your big combo. And now you may say, what can I search off of Grimro? What do I want to search? As a general rule of thumb, look at your hand and say, what can make this hand better? So, right now, I'm looking at my hand, I'm thinking, okay, I definitely have a level 5 play there. How can I make another level 5 play? And I'm like, if I get Nezuchi to my hand, I can discard Lurie and have another 5 play, because your level 5s are what get you draws. Unless you special summon out Catastor or Armades. Another little pro tip here, I'd say go for Reagan over Librarian like 9 out of 10 times. I'm just saying that because the additional 2 draws will help you out more than the potential of drawing 1 will. I mean, there's just nothing you can do about it. So that's just how this deck operates. I mean, it's crazy. Any other deck, you would definitely go for a card that lets you draw 1 every time you special summon the main type of monster your deck likes to make. Because, like, imagine if Fire Fist had a card that said, draw 1 card every time you special summoning a Z monster. Like, they would go for that over Tiger King 9/10 of the time, I would say. But in Fabled Quasar, it's kind of the opposite, because most of your plays are going to leave you with very few cards in your hand, and you don't want Librarian in that situation. You want to draw more cards. But in this situation I mentioned, I would definitely go for a Librarian then a Reagan, because that gets you 3 draws, which if you just went for 2 Reagans, you would get 2, and if you couldn't use the cards, you'd get none off the next one. So that's one situation where you would go Hyper Librarian. Now, when do you want to use Raven? So Raven is one of my cards, because as Blue Eyes White Boy put it, this guy, I love him. As he said, Fabled Quasar relies a lot off of drawing the right card, drawing good cards. So the way I counteract that is by making sure that every card in my deck is good. And what he means by that is every card that he could potentially top deck in his deck, he can use immediately. He can use it to get out of a tight jam. He can use it to advance his plays. He can use it to set up for next turn. He constructed this deck around the idea that he would be able to pump out huge monsters every turn, first turn. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I agree with him. I built my deck in much the same way. But I do have some recovery cards in here. Some cards that aren't necessarily good in every situation, like obviously Level Eater and Tuning Wear and stuff like that. Stuff that just, if you top deck it, you just really can't use it immediately. You need to wait. And including the Ravens. So, Raven's a controversial tech because if you draw it while you're playing Reagan Deep Draw Turbo, he's kind of just sits there in your hand unless you happen to draw a Chava with him, or you get the ultimate top deck and top deck in Nazuchi as well. Because Nazuchi has an effect that says when he's special summoned, you can special summon one level 2 or lower Fabled monster, and that's what Raven is. So that's definitely a good interaction to have there. But the reason I run Raven is because he starts plays. He gets your Quasar plays rolling sometimes, and he's just a good normal summon, because what else in this deck do you want to normal summon, right? Do you want to normal summon a Tuning Wear? No, you always want to get that off a 1-for-1. Do you want to normal summon Chawa or Nazuchi? No. So I really just put him in there so I can have a card to normal summon that can do something other than be Synchro Fodder for card to special summon. Raven's effect is once per turn you can discard any number of cards, and if you do, this card gains 1 level and 400 attack for each discarded card until the end of the turn. I like that because he can turn into a beat stick. He can activate as many Fableds as you want. And back in like 2007 and 8, he could discard. It wasn't back then. It was like 2008 or 9. He can discard Dark World monsters and get their effects, while pumping up to like level 6 or something. So you could bring out Nazuchi and go for Stardust, because way back then, Quasar wasn't around, and the deck was really just an aggro synchro deck that could pump out some crazy fields. So I think that'll about wrap it up. I think I've been going for about 10 minutes. Let's see. Oh, never mind. Okay, let's see. I've been going for 12 minutes, so that'll wrap it up. I'm going to end it with a final summary. So Grimro, use this card, discard it before you go for your big plays to make your hand better. That's pretty obvious. And Fabled Raven, use it as your normal summon. There's nothing else in this deck you want to normal summon. And use it to discard cards like Glow Up Bulb, Level Eater, even Tuning Wear. They're just dead in your hand but could do some work in your graveyard. Great play this deck has is discarding 3 from Raven, including a Level Eater, then special summoning Level Eater and going for a Rage-In off of what you discarded with Raven. Anyways, that's just about it. That'll wrap it up. This has been Tips and Tricks sub today. That's a reference to a Call of Duty commentator I watch. I got tons of them coming up, and I hope you enjoy this series. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.